Hi, these are the top 10 high dividend ETFs to consider adding to your portfolio. Now, there are a lot of them, so I will highlight the top 10 and then I'll go in the lowest yield to the highest yields, because you're gonna probably want to go, oh, I want to get the most dividends for my buck. Okay, so I'll just list them real quick. Vanguard Dividend Appreciation ETF, which is VIG. V for victory, I is independent, and G for good. ProShares S&P 500 Aristocrats. That's Noble, NOBL. Charles Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, which is SCHD. SPDR S&P Dividend ETF, which is SDY. iShares International Select Dividend ETF, IDV. iShares Core Dividend Growth ETF, which is DGRO. Wisdom Tree US Mid Cap Dividend ETF, which is short for DON, DON, ticker symbol. First Trust Value Line Dividend Index Fund, F as in Frank, V as in Victory, D as in David. Invesco S&P 500 Low Dividend, Low Volatility ETFs, SPHD. And I'm just going to review real quick. You're like, oh, what were those dividend indexes? Well, remember Warren Buffett, the billionaire, one of the world's most famous investors, he recommended to his wife that the S&P 500 index fund is the single best investment that the majority of Americans can invest in. So that's his opinion. And he said that Vanguard is really great for their ultra low fee, and which is like 0.03% expense ratio, and it's offered by its S&P 500 index fund. So Warren Buffett recommends you to have invest in index funds, especially he recommended it to his wife. So that's why index funds have the back recommendation by Warren Buffett. So, okay, and I have so many to tell you. So I'm going to just tell you about the Vanguard, since we're talking about Warren Buffett. You're like, oh, which one is the one that he does? Well, these are some of the ones you can look at because they have a lot. Vanguard High Dividend Yield ETF. And the reason why I like that one, you might want to take a look at it. It tracks the index of 400 stocks that pay above average dividend yields, which we love. And some of the companies in there are your Johnson & Johnson, which have been around a while, and we all love Johnson & Johnson, and we always buy products. You probably didn't even know that you buy Johnson & Johnson's products probably daily, weekly, monthly, and every single year for years. Ticker symbol J&J. And they have the JP Morgan Chase, JPM ticker symbol. They have Procter & Gamble, another great consumer stable name in the business that everyone loves. Procter & Gamble, your Tides and your Crest toothpaste. So the ticker symbol is PG. Intel, INTC ticker symbol. So that was one. And so we always love, what else? Vanguard also has Vanguard Real Estate ETF for all you that want to be real estate moguls. So if you don't have the millions of dollars to buy a house in Los Angeles, then you might look at Vanguard Real Estate ETF, which ticker symbol is V as in Vanguard, N as in nice, and Q as in queen. And then there's the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF, ticker symbol VOO, which is V for victory, O as in octopus, O as in octopus. So, and then I'm going to go down this big list here. So there's a ticker symbol, the SPDR S&P International Dividend ETF, which is ticker symbol DWX. D is in dog, W is in win, and X is in xylophone. The dividend dividend yield is 5.39%, and the The expense ratio is, because you always want to look at that to see what the fee is for having the index funds, because they charge a little fee every year, is 0.45%. Okay, so then Fidelity High Dividend ETF, ticker symbol F as in Frank, D as in dog, V as in victory, V as in victory. You get a yield of 5.39%, and their payout ratio, the expense ratio that I told you, expense ratio, is that one is only, which is lower, is at 0.29%, and they both give you the same kind of a yield. So the next one, Vanguard International High Dividend Yield, which I told you, VYMI, Victory Your Mighty Independent, that yields 5.81%, and the payout ratio is the expense ratio is 0.32. Expense ratio. Yeah, there's lots of terms in real estate, but those are the things you want to see, the fee, because you get fees in these things. But you know, if you don't have the time, effort, or energy to look at these stocks and to get a basket of stocks like this, it'll probably cost you $10,000 to get all those separate ones, or just get a couple of those, because Amazon is 3,000 plus, you know, Tesla is 1,600 plus. So sometimes getting the stocks individually costs more money than just getting one of these ETF funds, which can be around $200 plus or minus, depends on where it is at this day and time when you're listening to it. So that's why people like it. You get a bunch of the stocks in there for only about like $200 plus or minus, as opposed to buying all the individual stocks, which is costly. Okay. So let's continue, and let's see what else. Yeah, let's continue. There's lots of ticker symbols, lots of names, so stay with me. So we just did the Vanguard, and I'll tell you some new ones that you probably haven't heard of. So SPDR S&P Emerging Markets Dividend ETF. So emerging markets, if you're interested in some new companies coming in, that's EDIV, and it has 5.87% interest, and the expense ratio is 0.49%. So we're getting higher dividend return, and then you can see the expense ratio went up some more. Okay, so Wisdom Tree Global High Dividend Fund, DEW. You get dividend interest of 5.93%. So this is the highest one so far, and it has a 0.58 expense ratio. X Tracker MSCI EAFE High Dividend Yield Equity ETF, and the ticker symbol is HDEF. H is in house, D is in David, E is in Edward, F is in Frank, and that yields 5.96% and 0.20%. So I'm gonna, you might want some world. So here's Tracker MSCI All World X US High Dividend Yield Equity ETF, and that's HDAW. H is in house, D is in Dave, A is in awesome, W is in victory, and that has a 6.6% and 20% PE. Okay, so I'm gonna up the ante and get you all the way up to, how about this? We'll go into a 7.8% dividend yield. So that's First Trust Stocks European Selects Dividend Index Fund. So that's F is in Frank, D is in dog, D is in dog, FDD. That's 7.80%, and that expense ratio is and that one is 0.58%. So iShares Emerging Market Dividend ETF, D is in David, V is in victory, Y is in your, and E is in excellent, DVYE. That has an 8.18% dividend yield and only a 0.49%. So sometimes you want to just look around. Let's go up to Global X MSCI Super Dividend Emerging Markets ETF. And the Super Dividend Emerging Markets ticker symbol is SDEM. That's S is in Sam, D is in Dave, E is in Edward, M is in Mighty. Has a 10.2% dividend yield currently and 0.66 expense ratio. Okay, Global X Super Dividend US ETF, that is simply DIV, D is in Dave, I is in Indy, V is in Victory, has a dividend yield of 12.26%. Woo! and the expense ratio is 0.46%. And then here's one I found that has a dividend yield for 18.30%. You're like, what? That's Global X Super Dividend ETF, ticker symbol SDIV. S is in Sam, D is in Dave, I is in Indy, V is in Victory. Expense ratio is 0.59%. So I'm gonna go over a couple so that you can just go, what did she just say? I don't understand. Okay, so I think I told you Invesco S&P 500 high dividend, low volatility ETF. Ticker symbol SPHD. S is in Sam, P is in Paul, H is in Howard, D is in Dave. So this one has it's an eclectic mix of traditional blue chips like AT&T. I told you about the AT&T, ticker symbol T, and they have some natural gas in there, and the yield is roughly twice as the typical stock in the S&P. So that's very nice. So low risk investors might want to take a look at this one. And, we have a tough year with the pandemic, tough year with closures and people not having work and being unemployed. So really take a look at some things. First, Trust Value Line Dividend Index Fund, FVD ticker symbol. F is in Frank, V is in Victory, D is in David. And this is an active ETF with, they're saying a high turnover rate. So really look at that. And, this one's above average cost, 0.7% in expenses, or $70 a year for each $10,000 invested, which we're beginners, so... But it has more than $8 billion in assets, and investors, that's why people are looking at this one. But it's also more risky, so that's interesting. Okay, so I told you Wisdom Tree. So Wisdom Tree U.S. Mid-Cap Dividend ETF, which is short for Dawn. D is in David, O is in Octopus, N is in Nice. So it focuses on stocks that are that have decent dividends, and it lists about 350 stocks in this fund, and they're most of these, they're familiar, they're mid-sized, like the Campbell Soups, which is a consumer staple, like Campbell Soup, especially everyone's stocking up on soups and pastas and rice and anything that has long shelf life, because people are just taking everything in the grocery shelves, especially with winter coming. People are going to stock up on more soups because winter's coming and the flu season is here. So Campbell Soup, CPB, and that's in there, and they have so you might want to look at that one because they're more familiar, and it's called the Goldilocks of stocks that they have in there. So I recommend you to look at that one. So iShares Core Dividend Growth ETFs, which is DGRO, D is in dog, G is in good, R is in rich, R is in octopus. So these are considered one of the top ETF families in there, and they have about $9 billion in assets. They have a portfolio of about 480 different stocks in this one ETF, and so you might want to check out that. They have Apple in there, so if you don't want to buy an Apple stock because they're so almost $400, this one does have Apple in it, which and Apple does pay a dividend, but it's not a huge one. But okay, let's see. iShares International Select Dividend ETF, IDV, I is an independent, D is in Dave, and V is Victory. So this is, let's see, they have stocks around the globe, so that's interesting, and you might want to take a look at that. So it's more global, like they have Royal Dutch Shell, RDS.A, British American Tobacco, and we know people are smoking and drinking, and we still need oil even though the electric cars are coming. You're always going to need oil, but right now the oils are taking a dip. But you might want to take a look at that one because it's international, so you can have an international stock if you like. Schwab U.S. Dividend Equity ETF, that's SCHD, S is in Sam, C is in Charlie, H is in House, D is in Do. And they like to compare that to Vanguard for one of the cheapest dividends ETFs. So take a look at that one. And they have the drug maker Pfizer, which everyone likes that one. Okay.